So you were convicted. You were put in prison, obviously. Were you immediately targeted because you were convicted of a rape? And
Yeah, I was targeted. I was targeted. Yeah, you're exactly right. There is a vigilante mentality towards people in prison, towards people who've been convicted of sex offenses. So, I'm in a men's maximum security prison. I'm 17 years old. I'm weighing 150 pounds. I think I had been in 2 or 3 fights in my life, if that. And I was in a very dangerous place, and I was beat up multiple times through the course of my years in prison. I mean, one time I nearly lost my life.
wow, how did you get through it mentally?
Combination of things. I mean, belief in God was one thing. Another thing was that, in my mind, I wasn't doing a 15 to life sentence. I was just kind of like living from appeal to appeal. I just thought I was doing like a year or two until the next court proceeding, which I was sure that I was going to win because I was innocent. I believed in the system. I used to go to the law library to learn the law, and that gave a sense of comfort, of solace. I felt like I was like, fighting back. And plus, at this point, I no longer trusted lawyers to defend me on their own. So I wanted to be able to give suggestions and have some oversight. And so to do that, I would need to know what I was talking about in the first place. So I went to the law library a lot. I used to collect articles about other people who were exonerated, and that would help me morale-wise. I engaged in this elaborate delusion that when I was playing chess or playing basketball or playing ping pong, I used to pretend that I was a professional player, and so were the other people. And when we went to the gym, that was a road game, and this other recreation location that was at home. The people on the sidelines were the audience, and I could hear the color commentators calling the game because I used to watch sports and everything. This was a defense mechanism. I needed to leave the prison for a couple of hours mentally, and so that delusion was part of it. And you tried to normalize the madness. I mean, you tried to, I'm not going to the prison assignment in the morning or in the afternoon. I'm going to school or I'm going to work. And I had to fight off feelings of hopelessness, helplessness, thoughts of giving up, suicidal ideation. I mean, I had to do all those things, in addition to what we've already, spoken about. I don't know how I got, I just told you how I got through it, but nonetheless, sitting here thinking about it as I'm recounting everything to you, I wonder how I got through it also, even knowing all of those things. It's still a miracle that it's still a miracle I didn't lose my mind. It's a miracle I didn't commit suicide. It was a miracle I wasn't killed, to be honest. I don't know how I made it, to be honest.
An amazing imagination. So
yes.
Escape. How did you not lose faith in the system after how many?
I lost 7 appeals. Yeah. I just didn't give up. I naively thought that the higher up in the court system that I went, that, the more accurate it got, and, the more learned the judges were. But it wasn't like that at all.
So how did you finally, what came about that finally exonerated you?
Yeah. So one of the letters that I wrote in care of a book publishing company to an author was instead sent to an investigator. And she, when I showed her the DNA paperwork, she believed in my innocence. She never saw a case before where someone was convicted despite the DNA. And she tried to get people to take my case. And one of her ideas was a winning one. She suggested I write the Innocence Project. They had rejected me previously. So I wrote them again, and she lobbied them from outside the organization. She got other respected legal entities to lobby them. And then I got lucky that one of the caseworkers, when the lawyers didn't want to go forward with my case, because they were used to taking cases where DNA testing was an option, but in which no prior testing had been conducted. They would just get the testing and then introduce the results to the court as newly discovered evidence. But that was not an option in my case because the DNA was known, so it wouldn't have been new. So that's why the lawyers rejected it initially. And when I reapplied to them, it was why they didn't want to go ahead with it. But this intake worker kept repeating representing my case, coming up with new theories as to how the DNA could be used to constitute something new. And on the third try of her presenting it, they agreed to take my case. So getting the representation was the key. Second thing is the prosecutor, the district attorney, Janine Pirro, whose office had fought all of my appeals. with her having taken office after I was convicted, but before the appeal started. She left, and her successor allowed me to get the further testing. And thirdly, we got lucky that the actual perpetrator, his DNA was in the data bank. So left free while I was doing time for his crime, he killed a second victim 3.5 years later after he killed the victim in my case. Confronted with the evidence, he admitted he was the person who committed the crime. So on September 22nd, 2006, all the charges against me were dismissed on actual innocence grounds. I'm sorry, the conviction was overturned based on the newly discovered evidence, and I went back to court November 2nd, and at that point, everything was dismissed on actual innocence grounds, and he was ultimately arrested and pled guilty and was sentenced for the crime.
Wow. Do you remember the feeling of when you knew you were going to be set free?
Yeah, I didn't believe it. My lawyer came to see me, and she said, and so having been denied by so many times, I mean, I was very hesitant to have hope in anything, because it hurts too much when you hope and you get let down. It's like being wrongfully convicted all over again. So the lawyer comes to see me, and she says, the items have been tested. And I said, well, what do you mean? They're not, you mean they've been tested? They're not supposed to be tested for a month from now. And she said, no, the district attorney got the items tested ahead of time, and the results match the actual perpetrator, and you're going home tomorrow. And I said, yeah. And I said, no, I'm not. And she said, yes, you're going home tomorrow. And I again said, no, I'm not. And the third time she told me I was going home, and I again said, no, I'm not. And so she had to literally sit there and hold my hand, and for this 3.5 hours of mental paralysis in which my head was spinning and all these different thoughts were going through my head, and I was mentioning them to her, one by one, and one subject had nothing at all to do whatsoever with the next thought. And she was just patiently holding my hand, talking, listening to me. And every now and then she'd break in and would say, are you ready to talk about tomorrow? And I was like, no, just get that away from me. Not going home tomorrow. We're not talking about that. And eventually she said, what made it real was, she said, look, the visiting hours are almost up. I got to get your clothing size, your shoe size. There's a ton of work that have to be done between now and tomorrow in terms of the media, so that's what made it real. Of course, about, 5 minutes after settling into that, a different fear crept into my mind, which was, I thought that something was going to happen between that day and the next, and the district attorney was going to change her mind. Right. And they were going to do what they always did, which was, fight me and win.
Wow. Was it a really hard battle to integrate yourself back into society?
It really, really was. Yeah, sure. So, I mean, there was, there's the psychological after effects. It's typical when people have been wrongfully imprisoned, that they get post-traumatic stress disorder, panic attacks, anxiety, fear on seeing law enforcement, feeling of processing things at a slower speed, just a feeling of having been frozen in time. So I was released when I was 32, but I felt like I was 17, because that was the age that I was when I was last free. The world was different. Technology was different. GPS, cell phone, internet, all of that was hadn't been invented before. The culture was different. Mm-hmm. And cities and towns looked different. There was enough buildings and other structures to remind me of what it used to look like, but there was quite a bit that was changed, and so it felt like I was in some sort of like alternative reality, where, a world that I didn't belong in. It was very hard to put together a social circle. I mean, I was 32, but I felt like I was 17, so I still wanted to throw a ball around or go on the bumper cars or do other things that teenagers were. But I mean, who was my peers to do that with? I mean, I had lost touch with everybody, and other people my age. I mean, that was like long time ago. There was social stigma. No one really questioned my innocence, because the actual perpetrator was caught and arrested and convicted, and there was a report that had been done by 4 experts appointed by the district attorney to break down what went wrong in my case. So nobody really questioned my innocence. It was more, well, you were in prison for 16 years wrongfully, yes, but you were there for 16 years. So how much of that rubbed off on you? Is it safe to be alone someplace, with you? So that stigma really hurt in terms of trying to, build a new social circle, personal relationships, that kind of thing. And then I was released with nothing.
Right.
So New York State has a law, and you can get compensated, but it wound up taking me 5 years for that process to unfold. So I was always passed over for gainful employment, and I was making money doing speaking engagements and writing articles, but doing speaking engagements is not a consistent form of income. And the articles, it was for a weekly newspaper, and they only wanted, because of that, they only wanted one a week. So it was very I lacked stability of housing. I bounced around from place to place. I nearly ended up in a homeless shelter at one point. Thank God, Mercy College, which gave me a scholarship. So one of the things I did while I was in prison is I got the GED, and I got the associates, and I completed another year of schooling towards the bachelor's. But then the funding was cut for prisoners, and so the fact that I was 30 credits short of the bachelor's degree made it into the daily one of the in the article that this daily newspaper in Westchester mentioned as like a human interest item. And so this dean at Mercy College lined up a scholarship for me to the school to finish the bachelor's degree. And so that really was kind of like an intervention. And I was foolishly thinking I was too old at that point to go to college. That ship had sailed, but I didn't have anything else to do. I was just kind of floundering around. And so being given that opportunity, I took that. And when I was just a couple of weeks from the homeless shelter, the school allowed me to live on campus as well.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. From that, as I started doing advocacy work, I realized from that press conference that, I didn't necessarily need to be a lawyer to do innocence work. And I had read that other people exonerated had taken to the speaking circuit. So I was speaking, I was writing, I was trading privacy for awareness by doing media interviews, hoping to further the issues. And I was meeting with elected officials, going to school, and just having that general difficulty of existence that I mentioned to you. It was very lonely. It was never, just very hard to put that social circle together, and it was awkward whenever I would meet up with members of my extended family, because I knew who they were intellectually. I had memories of them from when I was younger, but they had either never come to see me, or in most cases, or even when they did, it was very, very few times. So they were somebody different. They were a different person now. I was a different person, so it was hard to relate. So I had to overcome all of that. But after about 5 years, I was compensated. I did get the bachelor's degree. I did get the master's degree. And I took some of the money and I started the nonprofit organization, the Jeffrey Deskovic Foundation for Justice. When there was maybe like 3 or 4 years left on what turned out to be the last 3 or 4 years of my wrongful imprisonment, I remember just being really hard up and strung out and stressed out and just kind of generally hopeless. And I remember thinking to myself, if I ever manage to somehow get out of here, I'm going to become a lawyer, and I'm going to free other people who are wrongfully convicted. So I remember having that thought then.
And you stuck with it, and
I stuck with it. Yes, I did. I stuck with it. I applied to law school after I got the bachelor's degree. I didn't get in. I worked for 6 months at this dead-end job that I hated, but I just toughed it out for 6 months. And then, finally I said, look, this is ridiculous. I'm miserable. I dread going to work. I'm just going to go back to school. I'm going to get a master's degree, and I'm going to come back out and see what the job market looks like then. So I did that. And then I was compensated. I started I was tired of doing individual advocacy. I wanted to go to the next level. I wanted to be involved in exonerating people, which was something I could not do on my own. And so I suddenly had this means. I just thought, look, this is your moment. You're at this crossroads. What are you going to do? And so I did decide to start the organization, and we have the mission of freeing people and doing the policy work. And I used some of the money. I used 7 figures of the money. I made a 7-figure donation to my organization, and we were able to get people out and change laws. In fact, at this point, we've gotten 9 people home. And at some point, I got tired of sitting in the front row in the courtroom. Some of those cases, when we got 9 people home, not all of them were exonerations, but several of them were, and others were other ways that we got people home. But the key thing I'm trying to get to right now is at some point, I got tired of sitting in the front row of the courtroom, I wanted to, I might have, the lawyer I might have been the boss of the lawyer, or we might have collaborated, worked on the case together, but I couldn't sit at the defense table, and I couldn't represent any of the clients. I couldn't speak for any of them. And, so I decided to make a second foray into trying to get into law school. And this time I did get in, and I did graduate law school.
Congratulations. That's wonderful. And it's so commendable that you didn't just take the money and go off to some beach and just drink some cocktails and settle into your life.
Sure. I mean, look, I feel like I've had educational opportunities and breaks that a lot of people in my position haven't had. And so I feel tremendous moral responsibility to do everything I can. I think that my life circumstances, gives me a platform, and it would be a big waste to just never be heard from again, or to, like you said, just go off on an island someplace. I do make sense of everything that happened to me. I do feel like my place in the world is to fight wrongful conviction and criminal justice reform. We have been able to help pass 3 laws in New York in terms of videotaping interrogation, better identification.
That's what I was going to ask. What are the laws specifically?
Yes. So videotaping interrogations, better identification procedures, DNA database expansion. The foundation is part of a bigger coalition group called It Could Happen to You, which I'm an advisory board member of, and we were able to pass 3 additional laws. So a oversight board for prosecutors, a tweak of that discovery reform. So we helped to change the law pertaining to sharing information between the prosecutors and the defense. Now it's automatic, and it has to be like very, very early on. We want to repass that oversight, the Commission on Prosecutor Conduct. So the District Attorneys Association, not wanting any oversight, they brought a lawsuit challenging the constitutionality of the law, and the judge rejected all their arguments, but found an issue in the appeals procedure. So we're trying to repass that law, just making that tweak to it. We're trying to do that in Pennsylvania, and also pass compensation. Pennsylvania is one of 15 states that does not have compensation. So we were able to pass another law in Pennsylvania so that people have been exonerated or had charges dismissed against them, or been acquitted, that, now their records are automatically expunged, whereas previously, been exonerees who have, been denied employment, had trouble getting housing because they have a record, and they're trying to explain to people have been exonerated. Look at this news articles. Like, yeah, but you have a rap sheet, so we're going with the rap sheet over the news accounts. So we were able to help. It's crazy that we had to do that. That was
right.
A situation. But we did that in California. We're working again to have the oversight for prosecutors, and we think there's an opportunity in California to get rid of capital punishment. So we're working towards that too, with the given the obvious risk of executing somebody innocent.
Okay. And I understand you're also advocating for support for education for prisoners and
yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah. So first of all, I was a beneficiary of college education for prisoners, and it gave me something constructive to do while I was there. More importantly, I had that much less ground to cover when I was released. And I saw, not only in myself, but I also saw in other people. I mean, I knew prisoners there before they went into the program, and I saw how the program transformed them and how they became different people, and how people's horizons were expanded, and people were talking about different careers that they'd like to have when they when they were released. And college education for prisoners is a very serious crime fighting tool. Hudson Link, for example, which is a nonprofit organization that provides college education for some prisons, because the state and federal funding was cut for college education for prisoners. So the argument, the rhetoric they carried today, unfortunately, previously was, well, why should prisoners get a free college education when other people that have not committed a crime do not? But that was a false argument, because first of all, the financial aid forms were the same. And so nobody would be allowed to go to college simply because they were in prison. They would not be eligible to go simply because they were in prison, who wouldn't have been able to go on the outside through grants. Secondly, it was nationally, there was like half of it was like, I think it was like 1.5% of the total number of college students across the country that went to college through grants were in prison. So it's not like for every person who went to college while they're incarcerated, there was like a person on the outside who, wasn't able to go because of that. And as I mentioned, it's a serious crime fighting tool. Hudson Link's recidivism rate is 2% compared to the national average of 68%.
That is a massive difference.
Yes, so I'm a big advocate of college education for prisoners, and but that's another thing I've been been raising my voice up. I mean, I don't spearhead that, but I do lend my voice, a platform that I have to give voice to that issue, and I've talked to elected officials before about that, and we haven't been able to get it. They haven't been willing to do it so far. I mean, I'm hoping that we get another shot at that.
Well, anyone who's listening that wants to help, what can they immediately do, either financially or non-financially, or?
Yeah, of course. So look, we are a 501c3 organization. We're always looking for donors. It's unfortunately not free to do this work. To clarify, I don't take a salary. The compensation that I got, it's invested in conservative investments that pay a certain amount of money every month, and that serves in lieu of a salary for me. That allows me to make my ends meet and spend time doing advocacy work. So 100% of the money would go towards the mission of freeing wrongfully convicted people and pursuing policy changes aimed at preventing that from happening. And there are the secondary criminal justice reform measures. So we're looking for donors, and we're looking for board members. I'm looking for celebrity spokespeople. We do have a crowdfunding campaign on the website called Patreon, which is for everyday people who are willing to be ongoing monthly donors. So my crazy dream, right, and I've had a few of them that we've shared about on this episode, is imagine if 25,000 people were willing to donate like a lowly $3 a month on a recurring monthly basis. That would give us close to $1 million in donation, which we could use to hire attorneys, paralegals, investigators, other essential personnel to really ramp up, increase our capacity. We'd be able to, in terms of cases, and we would be able to pursue policy changes in additional states. I do want to share with everybody that there's a documentary short that's out about me called Conviction, which is available on Amazon Prime. It's been selected by 11 different film festivals. We've won 3 awards: the Award of Distinction, Best Cinematography, Best Documentary. So you can check it out on Amazon Prime. Drop a comment. That's another way of helping. I do have a public figure page on Facebook, and I'm on LinkedIn. So Jeffrey Deskovic, so if you'd like to keep up with the advocacy work that I do. Sometimes we need people to call their elected officials and insist that we want these criminal justice reform measures to be passed. Attending events, whether it's virtual right now or in person in the future. I mean, those things all count. Learning more about the topics and sharing that information. My end goal is I would love to have a chapter in each state. This is a countrywide problem, and ultimately each country, because I see wrongful conviction as being a worldwide issue. In countries where you don't hear about wrongful conviction, it's not that it's not happening there. What's going on is that there are no exonerations taking place there. There's nobody working on wrongful conviction cases. And in some instances, the court system doesn't have a mechanism by which prisoners can even introduce new evidence to challenge the conviction afterwards. And people can email me through the website, www.deskovic.org, can message me through social media, whether it's Facebook or LinkedIn, so.
Okay, and deskovic.org, that's DESKOVIC.org.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you so much. Conviction, by the way, a very powerful, very well made documentary short. And I understand she's making a full length right now, correct?
Yes. The producer, Gia Wertz, this was her first documentary, by the way. So she entered the field making a big splash.
Mm-hmm.
Gia's been great to work with. And she is, in fact, in the process of, it's nearly done. She's taking the documentary short, which is about 20 minutes right now, 21 minutes. And she's converting it into like an hour and a half feature documentary. So there'll be, the sequel or the bigger version will get into a lot more of the legal aspects. There'll be other people that are interviewed. It'll be more than just my voice.
That's on Amazon Prime for anyone that wants to see it. It's called Conviction. Highly, highly recommend it. And again, visit Deskovic. I'm never going to say it. Deskovic.org. Deskovic.org. And I'm guessing they could find your Patreon from there, or it's patreon.com/Deskovic. Again, thank you. This was a great interview. I really appreciate all the sharing that you did.
My final thought, I guess, is, that doing this type of work is why, it's, this is how why I'm not angry. I'm not bitter. I got to enjoy my life as much as I can. I can't do that if I'm somebody angry or bitter. And, I take the energy that I would feel and I channel it into this, advocacy work that I do. And, that's what drives me. So I encourage anyone listening, whatever challenge you've overcome in your life, to, overcome it and reach back and help similarly situated, people set goals, have a plan, work hard, be willing to modify the plan en route, because the goal is the goal. The goal is not the plan. There's no excuses. There might be reasons why something is a challenge or it's hard, but there's no reasons why it can't be done. You just have to be willing to stick with it. And if you do, at some point, I think a door will open for you, and find something meaningful and that makes a difference, rather than just settling for just doing something just simply for the paycheck.
It's amazing how you've refocused that energy. I know that most of us hold on to the angst or the wanting to get retribution for the wrongs against us, and it's pretty amazing how you've turned that around and really done some amazing things with it. So thank you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Okay.
And again, this is produced by Dweebs Global. So anyone that needs free or wants free mentorship help with mental health or resume writing, or you name it, we have free mentors from around the world, pretty much every country out there. So dweebsglobal.org, and it's free.